is time to get excited for our open mic.
Hi everyone, my name is Cole. I'm very happy to be here today. I was invited back here. And I just kind of wanted to take this moment to talk about what happened at the New York University campus recently during the graduation ceremony. I'm sure many of you saw it. I think I've already started going through it. One of these students took it upon themselves to speak about what was going on over in the Middle East right now, despite being told explicitly by the university not to do that. And in doing so, the university revoked their diploma. Nonetheless, after his speech, he was met with uproarious applause by the student body. And I kind of just wanted to acknowledge what that means for our generation and what it can look like if we all stand together and how powerful that can be. I think it's very easy to fall back to the headspace that, yeah, the older generations are still largely in charge and we can't really do much to impact what they're doing. But I think that also stands against what we can do now just by standing up, speaking out, getting loud, and getting out there. Because I think it's very difficult to ignore what we can do when we do all get up. And so, yeah, that's where I'd like to end it.
Thank you for talking about that. I think a lot of us saw that happen, and as people who are affiliated with the university space ourselves, it is palpable. We have seen it for years, and maybe even years before us, and we won't be here tomorrow. A new generation of students will, but it's important that we keep talking about these things and creating spaces for them, because it is really like we protect each other and we make space for each other. Next we have Evelyn Hite, is that right? I'm trying. Okay.
Thank you. So I am a 4 times Hopkins alumni. Here for my daughter's graduation. It is summer piece, so thank you for bringing us here, Lisa. And in the spirit of what you guys are trying to do here, which is express, resist suppression, and come together as a community through expression, I wanted to share with you something that I wrote 25 years ago when I was in med school. I wrote it as part of a medicine and society class, and it actually ended up getting submitted to Hopkins Magazine at the time for publication, accepted by the editors, and then 2 weeks later, they rescinded the acceptance because it would make people feel uncomfortable. So I will read this to you now, 25 years later. But just as a bit of a context, do you guys know who al-Durrah is? al-Durrah is a 12-year-old Palestinian boy. I don't know if you've seen the image of him being tucked, like crawling next to a pillar with his father next to him as he got gunned down in front of a camera. So this happened when I was in med school in 2000, and this is when I wrote this essay as part of the medicine and society class. So it was a typical day in anesthesiology. Dr. Smith and I walked out to the pre-op area to talk to 5-year-old Sam and his parents. Sam was there for a tonsillectomy that day. I listened as the attending explained the procedure. We'll put a little mask that smells like bubble gum on your face, and all you have to do is blow into it, okay? He then turned to the parents and whispered reassuringly, he may not like the smell of the anesthetic, but if he starts crying, just remember that it's more distressing for you than it is for him. He won't remember a thing. On October 1st, the world watched Muhammad al-Durrah's father desperately trying to shield his 12-year-old son from the volley of bullets that was fired at them. They watched as he held tightly to the corpse that, but seconds ago, was clutching his hands just as tightly. To Muhammad's father, October 1st will forever be the day he went to buy a car and lost a son. Sam, who would you like in the operating room with you, your mom or dad? Dr. Smith asked. Sam looked shyly at his dad and pointed to the young father sitting to his right. The father nodded and gave us a quick, anxious look. He stood up and held his son's hand as we guided them to the operating room. October 12th, the parents of 17-year-old Iyad Kushashi heard a knock on their door. Their son had been found in a building in Nablus with teeth knocked out and a bullet in his heart. I can only imagine what it must have felt like for the Kushashis to be forever hostages to images of their son, which on a good day picture the bullet going through his heart before the beating, on a bad day, the beating before the bullet. Sam sat in his dad's lap with his father's arm wrapped around him. Dr. Smith put the pink-colored mask to his face and urged, "Blow into the mask, Sam, smell the bubble gum." Sam played along and began to huff and puff. On October 14th, 18-month-old Sarah Hassan's parents raced through the gunfire in their car, as my parents had done when Lebanon was invaded in 1982. Her parents weren't as lucky, though. 3 bullets had put an end to their baby's cries before their comforting embraces could. We turned the pungent seroflorane on. Sam didn't want to play anymore. He warned his dad to hold him tight. The father reluctantly tightened his grip and around him as we forced the mask onto his face. Little Sam's hands traveled to the bigger hands wrapped around his waist and tugged at them to release him. The father closed his eyes and remained firm. Sam, realizing his dad was no longer on his side, began to cry hysterically as he tried writhing and wriggling his body out of his father's clasp. Then he became listless. This evil had taken its toll. The father opened his eyes and began to cry. I silently slipped out of the operating room to the nearest haven, the women's locker room, and there I let down my rarely faltering stoicism and wept. I wept for Sam's father, who could not explain to his son why he had turned against him. I cried for al-Durrah's father, whose shield had failed his son on October 1st. I cried for Sarah's parents, who will forever wonder what kind of woman their little girl would have grown up to be had they not left their home on October 14th. The intrigue of medicine is that it allows you to be part of experiences that transcend color, race, and religion. It reminds you that pain, love, loss, suffering are universal, that we are all created equal, and that we all deserve to be treated as such. Every day I drive through East Baltimore, however, into the neighborhoods surrounding the #1 hospital in the country. Every time I listen to the news, I am reminded that the shortcomings of medicine is that its impact will always lay hostage to the politics of the time. The killing of Palestinian kids did not start after October 7th. The suppression of our voices did not start after October 7th. But I am inspired nevertheless. I'm inspired by this generation, by you guys. And here we are with my daughter, 25 years later, expressing much more articulately than I, much more powerfully, and resisting. Thank you all.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you so much for being here, all of Emisa's family, and Emisa, every day, thank you for being at the school. I cannot tell you how much better I feel about being here at all, because I know that you're here. And now I can tell why. I can really tell why. Thank you so much for that, and that perspective of how this is. We tend to that's its own form of isolating ourselves when we don't think about the context and the lineage of our struggles, and also how beautiful that is. Yes, we have suffered for generations, but we have those generations standing behind us, and that makes us really strong. And gives us that strength of perspective that the people who are trying to oppress us will never have. No matter how much they seek after it or what perverted ways that they look for it for, they will never have that, and we will always have that, and we have to remember that. So thank you for reading. I can't believe that we got to hear that long after. Next we have Danny.
I wasn't going to read anything because I haven't written anything in literally forever, but I was inspired listening to all the amazing poetry we've heard tonight, and kind of remembered some old stuff, so we're digging into the drafts tonight. And this poem is about disability and neurodivergence, and it's called In Time the Funk Shall Be Within You. The way I do things is necessary. I gotta do them like this, there's no other way, but also you, temporarily able to, need me to do them like this, in a way. For this world to be the world that it is, for me to be the me you know and claim to love. I work in crypt time, my own kind of, sometimes in the pocket, often wonky, periodically tweaking groove that will take a month or a year or a day, but give as much or more. We all meet each other, crypt mentors and mentees, each unique experience and novel way of knowing, novel way of intertwining as it's told, built upon, workshopped. We all have our little tips, tricks, and twists with which to skip and trip through a world not made for us, not made really for any of us, built around an imaginary normal, the most normal man, the most pervasive cryptid we all still believe in. And if it was built for all of us? I once believed in the most normal man, and that perhaps I was unnecessary to a thing like him. But on the nose can be in the pocket if you listen attentively enough, if you binge listen to learn the language of the groove. Embrace that we can be cringe and cringe, that are there, my fight is yours too, Goofy. Sorry, I'm trying to find, yes, this is the one. This one's a little bit sad, but it is untitled, and it starts, there's a really horrifying quality to the opening and closing remarks of an automatic van door, if and only if you don't brace yourself for it. Time slips, and Lee Morgan's whole discography might pass you by, if and only if you don't brace yourself for it. In another or past or future reality, ideally, we care for each other, come together to care and connect. The thing is never truly the thing. The draining of color from leaves on the ground wouldn't be half as tiring, shared among plentiful witnesses bearing its weight, nor would the grayness of November be so oppressive. I miss being held, basically, and you, reader, do too, right? My hairline doesn't produce really any fear of the passage of time, it just makes me feel old and gross and unlovable, and I think somehow the passage of finite weeks on this earth, oh wait, yeah, that's probably it. I feel intense frustration that I'm not able to relax ever. The pain in my jaw from the clenching, that's why I hate my hairline, how it feels under fingers, skin extending bare, smooth, further than ever, making improvisations genetics would never have thought of. Improvising to survive, yearning to live, ever failing to strive hard enough to earn it. The jaw learns unclench when alone. Improvising, it had to, it clenches around the other, othering everything in the corner. The thing is different, that guy's beloved, but things in corners get clenched at and othered. Search for the new land, a prospect, a beautiful piece. It circles in on itself like maple seeds falling in Gila season, prompting you to ask whether searching or smithing, science or engineering, how much of each is best. Reader, I couldn't call them back. I shouldn't. Ideally, that world has existed, but hope needn't hinge on precedent. Beauty's in the eye, nose, mouth of the beholder, beholden to all that our lives deprive us of. Beholden to want of our friends, to emptiness, to the cold, to the empty, cold, lonely fucking night, to the rate of death up every winter, vacant houses looming over frozen bodies, peppered separate on the snow-kissed sidewalk. And then one more, which is a little bit silly. How dare they do so well so quickly? How dare they do so well so quickly? My hands are too cold, my face numb, very incredibly stupid and dumb to forget to pay the electric bill. I promise I am, in fact, a person, no more, no less. Sometimes you wish you were an eel, but I bet they face oblivion at least half as much, and you probably get diminishing returns on the horrors after 32% maximal dread. Everything, think it through, is in fact tied to your shame, to the thoughts that you think and the ways that it feels, to the choices you make and the horrible thoughts in your eels. Sharing fried ripe plantains on your living room floor, jazz playing from your TV, is truly what life is supposed to be. Big, big feelings like the kind you teach your kids how to cope with are not always the bread and butter, but they certainly are the spice and often are the potatoes, the meat if you're into that kind of thing. Your parents, you think, are these big heaping monsters, but really they're kids in a way, or like dogs, unaware. Your kids do show you what was there before the shame, and it was actually just pride and shame, apparently. So you put on Miles Davis and smoke a Newport as you wheel out a comically oversized chalkboard to blueprint the scaffolding for the new, healthy self you must construct from scratch with no help from them.
I love when people write about CHIRP time. I took a disability futures class last semester. Again, if you have time at Hopkins, you should take it with Dr. Puglia and Nessie. We have a grant. It's going to be even better next year. And CHIRP time is a concept which just proves how much every kind of marginalized people, or every community in general, marginalized or not, can learn from the disabled community, and how much when we make the world a better place for someone, we often make it better for everyone. So I love talking about CHIRP time and hearing about CHIRP time. Next we have Dwayne Edward B. pronounced love, peace, love. How delightful.
Hello. Let's see. I am a non-degree stage 4 cancer survivor. Hopkins saved my life. And I haven't performed in a while, or did any poetry or anything in a while. My Eastern name is Awil Unag. My Western name is Dwayne Edward. But my Eastern name stands for love, peace, love. And so I'll start with one that I wrote about crime. And some people call it black crime, but it's called For Murder. So it's life for murder, death for murder, honey for murder, money for murder. Life from death. I dedicate this to the death by line 9. See, I cried 9 times when I caught my life. And at 9, I didn't realize then that I could face 99. It was 9 on the dime, only off by 1. Caught this person sleeping, killed him off with 1 bullet. See the effects now and later. Put that in his mouth and told him to chew. People would cry later. No remorse for cold corpses. This is a G's Green golf course, so keep it moving and drive for the money, of course. And if it wasn't for the money, I'm a little confused why hands were forced to menace and take innocent lives. Maybe for minutes of pain, but by no means can pain heal long years of pain. So is it life for murder, honey for murder, money for murder, life from death? I dedicate this to the death of my... No. All right. So I wrote that when I was in a really man, does anybody see what's going on? Right. What is it for? But then I thought about it. You know, if I could talk about a million ways to kill, I could surely talk about a million ways to live. You know my motto, long life. I'm just trying to live right, grow around some real rights. If you live that life, better know your rights and learn how to fly the kite, caviar, roll flow. See, couldn't paint the picture, so I had to put the gems in my lyrics. You could feel it in my spirit. Never was a gangbanger, always been a holy roller. I'm a different kind of soldier. Dealing light by the jewels, everything golden isn't worn. See, is it life from murder, honey's from murder, life from death? I dedicate this to the sea. If I could talk about a million ways to kill, I could surely talk about a million ways to live. You know my motto, long life. I'm just trying to live right, grow around some real rights. If you live that life, better know your rights. So when I was in the hospital and I had cancer, as a stage 4 cancer survivor at Hopkins, I thought my art career was over. And I was like, I had tumors in my throat. I couldn't talk. I was featured in all these magazines. You know, Columbia Magazine was featuring me as a ghostwriter, started my own nonprofit, was trying to help people. But then when I got diagnosed with cancer, I couldn't write. So education, it's like, am I gonna go to education? I couldn't talk. I couldn't even have this experience. And I wrote this called Life and Death while I was in the hospital. And it goes, like a broken pencil, am I missing the point of life? When I write, sometimes I don't know how to feel, so I pray and meditate, looked at myself in the mirror and said, you're the master with your fate. The truth does not need a point to be real, but sometimes I still don't know how to feel, like a broken pencil. Am I missing the point of life when I write? So that's just a little bit. And thanks for letting me be here.
Wow, that was so awesome. I am so like impressed when people perform like without reading off of something, because you can tell you really embody your work. It really means something to you. You've come back to it. It like has moved you in some way. Hopefully one day I will be able to do that as well. So just inspiring at every level. Okay, well that's our open mic section, and that's most of our event. Let's clap. Before I pass it off to Yaz to do our send-offs and wrap-up, thank you to everyone who stuck through this whole thing. We're almost at the end. This is maybe the best part. And this is my third year I'm seeing this event. I waited the whole year for this. It's so fun. I love this space. Thank you to Bird in Hand. It has really gotten me through a lot of IFP1 assignments. And yeah, a nice space, a nice little local third space in our community. And yeah, thank you again to everyone who read and everyone who's here. Please keep finding us and our club and the community that we've built. We'll always have a space for you. And now I'm going to give it to Yaz to wrap things up.